Okay, so in the previous sessions, we've taken some time to look at balanced force, and we've practiced some standing pole postures and some slow movement Shili postures that help us to understand physically what balanced force is. And that's not something that you're just going to get straight away, even with those exercises. Obviously, it's part of a much longer journey, but we've got an initial understanding of balanced force. And like a lot of things in life, it begins to make more sense when you've got something else to contrast it to, which, as I've already said, is unbalanced force. And I've also already said that for purposes of martial arts training, what we need most of all is unbalanced force. However, I want to save the discussion of that until later. What I want to do first is start to physically feel unbalanced force. And we've met this before because it's the idea of skewing postures. And we've looked at that extensively in the beginner series. Skewing postures is how we form martial arts techniques. Why it works like that and the relationship between balanced and unbalanced force, and also adding on to that the relationship between so-called health Yiquan and so-called combat Yiquan, is a next stage of intellectual journey that we can look at in forthcoming sessions. For now, the important thing is to start feeling what we mean by unbalanced force, stripping it right back down to unbalanced force experienced in stillness. And obviously that's our core method in each one. We're building up from the basic building blocks, from just learning to stand again, learning to stand in balance, and now learning to stand in imbalance. And as I'll mention probably next week, it's quite an interesting and contradictory idea. It's a wonderful Yiquan contradiction that we normally think balance is an incredibly positive thing, and that's also an incredibly positive concept within Chinese physical culture, the idea of balance. So it goes a little bit against the grain to think that imbalance might be the positive thing that we need. And by imbalance, we don't just mean something like you're not steady on your feet. We mean the way that you use your body, the way that you shift your weight, and that transmits force to the opponent's body either with a strike, or you transmit your own imbalance into the opponent. You can handle that better and they can't. But I'm getting ahead of myself there anyway. That's all the things that I didn't want to talk about in this session. In this session, we want to strip it right back down so that we shift from that feeling of balanced whole body force into imbalanced whole body force, and start getting that feeling in our most basic training exercise, standing pole. And the posture that we're going to use is bear holding a stone. So hands out in front, lower down than the normal holding the ball posture, and the feeling is like you're holding a heavy stone, and your posture is a little bit like a bear. Shouldn't be too much like a bear. As I've mentioned before, you shouldn't be leaning forward like a bear that's just got up and it's very grumpy. Your back should be straight and head high, looking out into the distance. So it's a very cultivated sort of bear who's done some training. And you don't have to tell me, by the way, that that's not how you fight, and that if you stand like that with your chin stuck out, you'll get sparked out. I know that, having taken my fair share of punches right on the chin. However, that's not the purpose of doing it in standing pole. We alter that when we come into actual physical practice. Actual practice is an application. Standing pole is building basic skills, knitting together the structure of the body, everything that we've talked about before. And the reason that we're going to use this particular posture is it allows us, in the most simple way, to experience skewing the posture. So when we say unbalanced force, what that is skewing the posture so that it's offline in some way. One part of the body is moving relative to another part of the body, and it's no longer balanced. So for example, the first exercise that we're going to do, after we've spent 10 minutes as per usual, just getting into the posture, letting the body relax, letting all those intentional arcs relax and then begin to knit together. And that's something that should be happening more and more with your practice now. Then we move into our first visualization. There's a couple of ways of doing this. So the most basic way is we're going to imagine that, you may have seen this on a movie, like a giant tree trunk that's suspended horizontally by a couple of ropes and it's hanging down from the sky, and we imagine that that's pushing against our elbow, just one elbow. or it's there, not that it's pushing against us, but we begin to just lean into it. And remember that we did that exercise where we imagined a boulder and we imagined the boulder rolling into us. Well, this is a different feeling because we want to initiate the movement. We want to have a feeling of pushing forwards even within the stillness. So what we're going to visualize is, let's say our left elbow is leaning against the end of that log and it begins to push it, and there's just a little bit of movement. You can just push it forwards. Obviously, in reality, you're not moving. All of that movement is taking place in the body, or I should say, all of that skew is taking place in the body. So if you can do that and you can get that feeling, then to intensify the feeling, you can imagine that there's another log, and that's at the back of your right elbow. So your feet, they're maintaining their position, but your elbows are twisting. Left one is going forward, right one is pulling back. To look at you, no one will see anything unless they look very, very closely, but you feel it in your body. Now we want to do something else as well with this exercise. We want to push our understanding of how much can be done using visualization and standing pole, and how much can be going on depending on how you change that visualization. Now we're obviously going to do this both ways, so we're going to imagine pushing forward with the left arm, back with the right, and then we're going to change to imagine pushing forward with the right arm and pushing back with the left arm. Now at this point we need to be working effectively with the skills and feelings that we've developed, so we know the feeling that we want. You'll have felt this hopefully if you've been doing the balanced postures, and we've talked about this idea that actually you can't help but move. There's always movement in the posture. No one can hold it in complete stillness. And when you do move, when you like have a little bit of a spasm or something like that in the movement, then you instantly feel that sense of everything just locking together. And that's described, I read someone, an old Yiquan master, describing that as cold water suddenly rushing into the body. That can also be quite a painful feeling sometimes when you've been standing for a longer period of time. For example, if you've been standing for an hour and you suddenly move or twitch or spasm, it can feel a little bit painful. But usually it has this feeling like everything locks together, but it's a very intense feeling. And I think that idea of water, cold water rushing into the body, really sums it up. Remember, always follow the feeling, not the metaphor. The metaphors are always misleading, but it's a feeling, an intense feeling in the whole body that doesn't come from tensing. If you just tense up and try and get this feeling, you can't get it. So tensing to try and fake this kind of whole body connectivity just doesn't work. You can only get it by relaxing and then just moving slightly, that right kind of movement where there's a little bit of movement, and then you feel it all knit together and you feel that very intense feeling all over your body. That's the feeling we want first. So the first 2 times that we do this exercise, that's the feeling we want, but we only want to use our arms to get it. And here we're in the game. So we want to push forwards with our left arm, backwards with our right arm for the first iteration of the exercise, but we don't want to tense, and we want to use absolute minimal, that point, that liminal point where intent manifests as physical activity. So it doesn't even physically move us, but it just triggers the movement, and then we start to get that feeling. And we just do that by imagining just pushing from our elbows. And this is very closely linked to an important idea that we'll look at again, which is where you lead from, where you lead from in terms of a punch or a kick. And as I've said before in the beginner's class multiple times, if you watch someone on the bag, you can tell when someone leads with their hand, like their intention is in their hand, whereas in each one we want the intention, well, in the whole body, but it authors from the core. So we want to do that thing that normally we would say is wrong, and we want to do it because we want to understand the difference between what's wrong and what's right. So we want to put our intention very much in the points of our elbows. So we just push the points of our elbows, one forward, one back, skewing the posture, and in our imagination keeping our legs completely flat relative to our arms. But we feel like we're pushing forwards with the left arm, pushing backwards with the right arm, and pushing from the elbows. So we're leading from the elbows. And not to put too fine a point on it, we don't want anything from the core, anything from the spine. We just want it all in the elbow. So you get that feeling, that very intense feeling like cold water has rushed into your arms. When I say that, It doesn't exactly feel like that. So no metaphor exactly feels like the metaphor. This is always our problem within Yiquan. How can we get across these ideas? So follow the feeling, not the metaphor. But lead from the points of the elbows and just feel that skew that way. And we're going to do it 10 minutes one way and 10 minutes the other. And again, this is the principle of practicing some things that actually we don't want, so that we can compare and contrast them with some of the things that we do want. Because next we're going to move on to a much more intensive version of this posture. We're going to use exactly the same visualization. So after we've done it both ways, we're going to switch back to left arm pushing forward, right arm pushing back. Only this time we're going to engage what in the old days was called our spine axis. But as I've said many times before, in a more scientific understanding, we recognise that actually that central axis that runs down from the top of our heads down between our feet isn't real. It's a mathematical point based on the mass of our body, so it's not actually quite in line with our spine. But we use that idea of spine axis in the old days, but now we say our vertical axis. So instead of just engaging and leading from the points of the elbow, we want to engage first of all from that axis point, like from the core, from the physical core of our body, and from there push out the whole body. Obviously, again, people can't see any kind of physical movement. Maybe if they look very, very closely, they could see something, but from a distance you can't see anything. It's all about just moving those muscles inside your body, not just muscles, but your bone alignment, your tendons, linking the intent into your whole structure, and then feeling the difference between initiating the movement from your core around your vertical axis and initiating it from the points of your elbows. Those two very different, completely different physical feelings. And the second one is significantly more intense, involves significantly more of your body, starts bringing the legs into the posture, they start getting involved. And if you've been following the beginner's course diligently, you'll see here, this is the nascent movement that then goes into all of our actual practical martial arts techniques. Wang Xiangjai says somewhere that standing, slow movement and explosive movement are all the same thing, just captured at different time frames. And you really get the feeling of this when you get this feeling right. You feel it link together your whole body. You can feel how if you wanted to actually hit out with your elbow or hit back with the other elbow, this is how it would work. This is how you would release force. And you can even feel how it roots and sets into the ground and how it interlinks your whole structure. All those intentional arcs that we've been playing with start to knit together, and you begin to feel how you would actually transmit force to a certain part of the body. Not in any kind of, say, it's not mystical, but like Wang Xiangjai says, like re-understanding yourself is the most mystical thing of all. I don't know if he says that exactly, but putting words into his mouth, but he says something very much along those lines, you know, that the ordinary, well, I'll tell you what he says. He always quotes that quote, the way is not far from the people, that very famous Taoist saying, the way is not far from the people, i.e. it's the ordinary. Actually, he does say this. I take it all back. He says specifically that people look for the extraordinary and they don't understand that the ordinary things are where the magic lies. It's in the ordinary, everyday quotidian things that you overlook and you think are simple. They're nothing. That's just mere, just what, that silly little exercise like that. No, that's where the magic is. That's where the real beautiful magic is. And everything is there in this posture. The nascence of skewing a posture. All we have to do then is extend it into Fa Li and learn how to direct the force to that point, and also to be able to do it in a live scenario without getting sparked out. That's a whole other story. For now, we just want to get this feeling how skewing the posture radically changes the posture from a balanced posture, and that starts to give some inklings about, well, what's the difference between health Yiquan and fight-based Yiquan. In health Yiquan, you don't really need to do anything like this unless there's a therapeutic reason for it, and even then you don't have to take it to that point where you need to be able to set the posture, transmit force to a certain point. But you could use something like this therapeutically, for example, to heal a back injury or something like that. So it's by no means the case that you only use balanced force in health-based Yiquan, but we'll come back and talk about that another time. For now, getting ahead of myself, as always with everything, we just need to experience it physically. And once we've experienced it physically, then the discussion will take on a completely different, much more solid sense. In terms of times, you don't have to do it exactly the way that I do it, but if you want to follow along with me, that's advisable, I would say. I do an hour overall. It's just slightly under an hour. I didn't time it, so it's like 58.5 minutes or something like that. Your body gets used to times when you do standing. That's another interesting phenomenon. So your body will get used to, is it about an hour? Just like it gets used to, is it about 3 minutes? What we ideally want to do is, well, ideally would be 50 minutes. So 10 minutes to relax into the posture and then 4 sets of 10 minutes. And I think that, okay, for intermediate level, half an hour is about the right time for postures, but this posture is a lot easier than the other posture. So I think I would say push it, try your best to achieve this. You can always do it differently. This is just if you want to follow along with me, but I'm recommending that at intermediate stage, really, you should be able to push it to 50 minutes doing a posture like this at this stage. This is about where you should be at for a posture like bear holding the stone. I know it's tough, I know it's hard, but this is the real thing. It's not, we know that there's so many ways that you can water down martial arts training to make it more commercial, and the more commercial it is, probably the more successful it's going to be as a franchise thing to sell. But I'm not commercial, so I don't have to do that. I can just tell you the way it is, and the way it is at this level, intermediate level that we're looking at now, we should be able to do 50 minutes in bear holding the stone posture. I'll put a gong bell at the 10-minute points, so for people who want to follow along with me, you'll know when the 10-minute point is there. If you complete the whole thing, do 50 minutes, you want to do another 10 minutes along with me, then just work, just experiment, just shifting between balanced and unbalanced. Just release yourself a little bit from the rules of the exercise and then just experiment with all the different shifting side to side and even backwards and forwards, getting a bit of experiential knowledge beyond anything that we've talked about in this session. As you get into these longer sessions, something interesting will happen every time. I mean, I guarantee every time some really strange physical thing. So when people talk about standing pole, yeah, you can argue that it doesn't lead to any kind of benefit. That's a discussion that you can have, but no one can argue that it doesn't have incredibly strange effects on the body and feelings and perception. So first of all, I started getting very, very hot arms. My arms went really, really hot, which was quite interesting. And then the knitting together of the intentional arcs, so all the way around, like making a kind of O, a zero shape between my arms, like a very intense feeling of that circular shape just knitting together into a whole shape. And these feelings come and go, and you get different feelings, and then that goes, and then a fly flies into your face, as I had a bit of a battle with the flies again this time. All of those things happen, and then that brings you back down, grounds you again, and then you move on, and then there's a different feeling. So I also got like an incredible feeling of lightness in my arms, which obviously is the kind of thing you want. And I've talked before about when you get that feeling that your arms don't weigh anything, that's because you've momentarily got your posture perfectly balanced. And some amazing things can happen when your posture is perfectly balanced and structured. And some amazing things can happen in martial arts practice as well. So without there being any kind of mystical forces or anything like any kind of exotic forces, when you're perfectly balanced and your opponent is perfectly unbalanced, some amazing things can happen, all perfectly within the laws of physics. But we feel this feeling when your arms go completely light, like they're not there, like just, it's quite an interesting feeling. And another thing to mention is changing arm positions. So it's quite a common phenomenon actually, because my hands are just slightly out of sight for the most part. I can just kind of see the top of them. I started getting this. It's a very common phenomenon where I could see my hands, but when I looked down, that was an illusion. Those weren't my hands. Like I'd created a mental image of my hand, even with my eyes open, staring into the distance, gazing into the distance. I thought I could see my hands. My brain was creating an image of my hands, and then I realised actually my hands had dropped a little bit too low when I just looked down, so I had to just just correct the posture a little bit. So that's also something that can happen, particularly if your hands are out of sight. But that also leads on to this issue of hand positions changing, which happens inevitably. So you can see, well, for me, if I just use the video editing software to fast forward backwards and forwards through the video, that my hands rise up during the course of the standing exercise. They get higher, and that always happens with me, always. In fact, it happens with everyone for the most part. If people are struggling, then obviously the hands tend to go down, but even then sometimes you get the compensation where people start lifting their hands higher and higher and higher, and it's something Yao Zhongzhun talks about, that people always think that their hands have dropped out of place, but this isn't the same phenomenon. This is imagining that that stone is there and you're lifting the stone up, and just almost like it's so imperceptible, it takes an hour for your hands to lift up, but your hands are lifting as if they're lifting the stone, so that movement is there. And the only way to counteract that is, well, you could keep checking in a mirror, but usually someone's got to tell you. I mean, it doesn't have to be a teacher, just somebody who's monitoring your posture, but usually it's a coach who will just tell you, well, just put your hands back into place, because you're not conscious of it yourself. But everyone does it, even the coach, even the teacher, even the advanced teachers actually need someone to just then correct their posture, because it's just something that the body does. I mean, maybe there's someone who doesn't do it, but I've never met anyone who didn't do that. Everyone does it if you look carefully, just like everyone pretty much always has one hand higher than the other, and it doesn't matter how famous they are as an Yiquan master. Just go and look at photographs and you'll usually see they've got one hand higher than the other, usually their dominant hand, where they've got more mental control. And so I just finally wanted to mention this thing about people vanity quibbling about the shape of postures. Actually, when you do postures for longer periods, your hands change their position, so it doesn't make any sense anyway to say that a posture should be perfectly this way or perfectly that way. And Yao Zhongzhun particularly criticises people who talk like this, who fetishise the exact shape of the posture. Sure, there's a certain point where it's totally wrong, but within that there's plenty. It's totally wrong because it's damaging, or it's not going to lead to the outcomes that you want. But we're talking about ridiculously wrong, not just like, are your elbows slightly too low or are they slightly too high? And in any case, I saw an argument about, should your arms be completely flat or should your elbows be dropping down? It can be both. Both are absolutely fine. It just depends what you're working on. But the important thing is that actually your arms change their position during a longer period of standing. Everyone does it. So anyone who's arguing, well, we know the score. Those vanity quibblers who are arguing about it should be this exact position, if it's not this exact position, you're just wasting your time. They don't actually do standing. They've just got an outlet on the internet where they can... I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that they're after, building some kind of personality cult around themselves, or just it gives them a moment where they can just lord it over others. I saw one recently who was talking about standing, and he's one of these vanity quibblers, and then he started talking about being an enlightened being, and I thought, well, that's interesting, because every single post that you put on the internet is to demean another human being, as if there isn't enough awfulness in the world. But the message is that those people don't really do standing, so be very, very careful about who you trust around standing. And usually the more obnoxiously strict the rules are around standing, the more they just don't do standing. And in many cases, I'm telling you now because I've met these people before, they think that they've just got it. They think that they've just got the skill without standing, and that the standing is just for everyone else. And once you realise that there's this psychology going on, that some people think that they're martial arts Yiquan geniuses who just got it, and other people, they can't do that, so the standing is for other people, and so they pretend to do the standing that they never did, and they're not martial arts geniuses anyway. We know that by the fact that all there ever is an obnoxious post on the internet. So that's just my usual word of warning. There's lots of great people to learn from, but just be careful. Just be sure that the people who are giving the advice can do the exercise themselves. So that's it. Have a go. Try and do 50 minutes. If not, you can always break it down. Try and at least do minimum half an hour. If you're going under half an hour, not always, this is the other thing, you know, sometimes I can't do 10 minutes, my arms are aching so much, but as our standard, half an hour for intermediate level is fine. But if you can do 50 minutes, that's absolutely great. If you do the hour, or even if you do anything above half an hour, or even if you do less, and it's a great achievement for you, put a note on the video, let me know. It's nice to know how people are getting along with things.